Yes, my name is Leonard Brownlow. I'm with Booz Allen. I lead up the AI and digital engineering team in El Segundo. I've been with Booz for about 17 years now, and using UAF and UPDM for pretty much as long as they've been around. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of background. You've been all been following the digital engineering. There is no spoon documents that came up in Roper, really talking about digital engineering being a key enabler for acquisition. And then you also see Mr. Calvelli talking about how we need to sort of go to these fixed price contracts. And of course, with fixed price contracts, you need to have a lot of upfront engineering detail up there, just so that you can keep the projects on schedule and on cost. And MBSE approaches are perfect for that kind of approach. So one such program is the MTC program out at SSC. It's basically a prolific MEO constellation of OPI sensors. That program was born digital. So there are 6 acquisition phases. Epic 1 happened a couple years ago. That was sort of their first demo program where they were trying to introduce digital engineering to that effort. We came on board for Epic 2 and took some lessons learned from Epic 1 and took those over to the Epic 2 program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the MTC digital acquisition sort of experience, what we did, and then I'll give you a quick run through of what the models were, what the model structures were, and what they included in there. So what did we do that was so different, at least for SSC? One of the things we did was we built a very prescriptive model. So a very, very detailed model of exactly what the government wanted in UAF. We spent a significant amount of time working with the industry on these models. So is this just a lot of feedback, right? So, maybe I'll just angle it up a little bit. We spent a lot of time on the model. So the model included both the GRA, included the RFI, the statement of work, included all the acquisition documents, the specs, ICDs, cyber, everything. We spent a lot of time with industry going through the RFP package, which was all model-based. We had 23 one-on-one meetings. We had 11 industry days. We had about 900 comments that we had to go through across the SAL, the solicitation, and the models. And then those model elements that we released, different versions, even closer to it, and think it'll stop going. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then the model included basically videos. So we gave the demo day videos, demos through the models, and then we had videos embedded in the models that you could play again. So we showed them how to navigate the model, showed them what the content was. We also showed sort of animations of the expected mod sim. So the government was very interested in having the architectures be dynamic, so you can simulate all the activity models, the sequence diagrams, parametrics, stuff like that. This was all developed in the government-owned tech stack, which for Space Force they call Space Station. So it's just a remote environment that has Cameo and SDK and a few other tools in there, MATLAB. And then everything was implemented in UAF. So, and this was took us about maybe from April to August was the time frame from when we started building the products to when the final RFP was let out. So what did we do? We did have this standard guide that the government can now use for a lot of their future acquisitions. We showed that we could have this very detailed MBSE model. That model generated many of the technical documents, most of the technical documents for the acquisition. So the temp, the SEP is in there, SRDs, templates for test plans, the ICDs, the ConOps, all the use for the ISP. Everything comes out through VTL templates in the model. We were able to collaborate with industry on the models and get them to understand exactly what we wanted, which is great. We demonstrated that the industry can actually respond to the models with their own models and link to those models. So we had somewhere between 6 and a dozen. I can't say exactly how many people responded to it because they haven't announced the winner yet, but somewhere in that range. They all managed to respond to it. The level of quality of the responses, the government felt was at a PDR level for most of the responses and CDR in certain areas. So, which was fantastic. That sort of meant that they had a really sort of a low risk feel to these responses. For the evaluation teams, we had predefined tables with information in there that the contractor models populated. And that was great for the evaluation team because they could basically put up, the comparison tables from all the contractors. They could see what they were offering and understand the differences. They didn't have to sort of hunt and peck through a proposal to find things. So all in all, the government client was super happy, and they feel that they got a sort of a real step forward on their program and should really buy down a lot of their schedule risk. Oops. So why UAF? Actually haven't started, I think, a non-UAF project in probably 10 years. And one of the reasons I like it is I didn't make it up, right? It was made up by a committee. It's an organization, and exactly, right? And what I've noticed with programs that do start with SysML, they spend an obscene amount of time deciding what the custom stereotype should be and what the relationship should be and when to sort of stop adding them. And they breed like tribbles, you start and there are just thousands of them. And that stops you from doing the work, right? And with UAF, I can just start. I've got a framework in there and people can get going. You need training on it. Well, you can call up Matt, right? He'll give you a training on it. You can read up on it. James has published a lot of guides on how to produce artifacts with that. If people don't like it, I'll say, well, I'll send an email to Laura, ask her to change it. But the great part is that I'm not wasting a lot of time, and my team's not wasting a lot of time figuring out what to do. We can just sort of grab it and go. The data model as well supports a lot of things that we need. So on the acquisition side, we have to produce DoD diagrams. We have to produce cyber documentation, and we have to do system engineering documentation. And UAF, the model framework, allows us to do all of that really easily. The DoD piece is a little odd because there's a WMA framework that's called out by JSIS, and then the ISP's team uses a different DoD enterprise architecture guidance document. And UAF is somewhere in between those two. So you end up having to create your own measurement sets to comply with both those documents, but at least that's easy to do. And then the other nice thing about it is it's easy to federate UAF models together. So I work for an organization, it's a portfolio organization. We have lots of different programs out there that make up the enterprise. They're all in UAF and they all sync up nicely together. So, all right, so for MTC, so we have a government reference architecture that we built. We also built what we call the government acquisition model. That's the one that contains the PWS and the SAL and all the system engineering technical review material. And then we have the solution template. And that's the template where the contractor links their model in and has all these predefined pages and tables for their content to show up in. They're like, hey, why didn't you use the OMG MBSE acquisition model? Well, we didn't have it. And I'm not actually sure where I download that. I think you have to be a member part of the group. There's also another WOSA weapons GRA out there that's actually very good. We contributed to that, but it wasn't quite right for the MTC program. And we also have some digital architecture and some digital acquisition work we did for the Air Force Vader program a few years ago that led to this design. So you can see at the top, we have the contractor solution template. There's a single usage for the government acquisition model in there. The government acquisition model has the GRA in it on the left-hand side. And then we have a bunch of other sort of models that include in there. They're very similar to what the MBSE acquisition team called domain overlay. So we have our cyber model. Aerospace Corporation contributed the test model and the integration model to that. And then MITRE worked on the MES model and some of the validation pieces in there. So the primary features of this is we have the single integration point, which was super easy for the contractors to get updates because we were dropping updates from that April to August timeframe every 2 weeks. So they could get the latest from what the government was thinking. We had these procedural templates. So one of the things that the government's really been working on for the last few years are what they call style guides. And a lot of times it's just my favorite SysML rule book in there. But there was no real guidance on, well, how do I build a requirements document in a digital model that is equivalent to a standard mill standard? document, right? Or how do I build a model-based ConOps or an ICD or whatever? So we've defined a lot of procedural templates in lieu of waiting for like a digital DID format. We've defined those templates. We have VTL scripts that scrub the model, extract the data, populate it in the templates. We have completion metrics in there that tell you how far along you are. And then we also have some goodness metrics. So we'll go in there and scrub your requirements language against the NCOSI requirements working group rules, and it'll flag anything you write in there that looks like a bad requirement and should be rewritten. We have acronym and definition library. That was one of the lessons learned from Epic 1, is that all the contractors were coming with sort of different definitions from the government, and everybody was sort of speaking past each other. So we gave a predefined acronym list, predefined definition library. Everybody's using the same library. We have videos and process guides so we can understand, one, how to navigate our model, two, understand what the expectations are for simulations, and then we have process guidance that tells you exactly how to replicate what we've done at the next layer down. Now, we didn't mandate that the contractors use UAF. There were some that wanted to use UAF. There were many that didn't. They just wanted to use SysML. So we have a black box SysML library. With the MTC acquisition, they have different contractors acquiring the space layer from the ground entry point layer and also to the mission processing layer. So they're all three different contractors. So we have a black box library that they can use, and they can grab basically a box from one of the other domain areas. We have the interface blocks in there, the signals, the data types, all that's predefined for them to reuse. And that's the same data that's in the ICDs that we're providing them. So the model that should enable sort of federation. All right, government acquisition model. So government acquisition model, can't really read it on the right-hand side. The landing page is really meant to navigate in the model, not for presentations. But in that model, we have government acquisition model with all the data in there. We have links to the reference architecture. We've predefined what the system engineering test review entrance and exit criteria are. So we basically did a scrub of 5288. We put in there what we expect them to do. It's in a table that they can track compliance to it. We have a lot of other reference material that sort of PDF and Word files. They're just kind of there. And then we have the SSC style guide for how to do SysML. We also have some macros and other things in there too. So if you went into the acquisition page, you can find the government contractor, you can find the SAL, you can find the PWS, you can get that in Word form, but it's also parsed into requirements elements. So as you create your architecture in the solution template, you can just create direct links between things that are asked for in the SAL and the PWS and show your compliance to it in the model. For example, we've got some required views. We have a list of required views. They'll show up in a table. They can put a link in there and then show that they've made all the required views in there. It's just an example. Process and template guides, again, you're not supposed to be able to read this, but for each of these procedurals, so we have requirements documents, we have interface control documents, software product specs, data description, database description documents, test plans, interface requirement specs. All of those we have created basically process guidance, which you see on the right-hand side. It could be 10 steps, 11 steps. You follow the steps. We have a sample table or sample diagram you can open up to the right of it and see exactly what we want you to create, and with all the data that is required to create these documents. So once you have followed the 10-step process, you've created the 8 or 10 diagram types that we've defined. You can run the VTL script, and it'll pump out all those documents for you. And all you have to do is run the table of contents, right? And you're done. There's not any post-processing required. And then we have metric suites that will sort of measure your progress as you go along. So what does that look like? Just at a very high level, like here's just a package structure for an SRD. It's the MIL standard 520. So you've got sort of, section 1 scope, 2 applicable documents, 3 is where the requirements are, and you got your traceability and appendices at the back end. So how do you do that? So for each of these documents, what we did to create the templates, we basically read the instructions and said, well, how would I model that in UAF? So here's a very basic meta model. So section 2 is references. Well, those are just standards. So all those references are standard objects in the model. Section 3.1, States and modes, that's going to be a state and mode diagram with traces and requirements. Section 3.2 is functions. So that's your SV4, functional breakdown. Those are your functions. Those functions map to functional requirements. They may also map to a standard. So if you're doing MOSA, you have a function, it maps to an open standard that helps you sort of do some MOSA work. And then you have input and output parameter signals attached to that function. And then maybe you have measurement criteria. So if you have a performance number, maybe that system function is report health and status or something like that. And your measurement is once a second. So there'll be a measurement type in there. It'll say once a second. That will trace to performance requirement. And you build that up. So same thing with interface blocks. You assemble your standards together, create your protocol stack, add your signals. Once you get to 3.5, you're talking about the actual data content in there. And then beyond, 3.6, 3.11, those are essentially just standard references for the most part, but could be constraints. But anyway, we're using these model elements to basically create the relationships, populate the diagrams. All that gets scraped and dumped into the VTL templates, and create your documents in there. All right. So for the contractors, we also have their contractor library. This has a library of information blocks, signals, interface blocks, standards, system blocks, and also system taxonomies in there within value types. So this is the library that we wanted the contractors to use for all their external elements, so that when we federate, everything will sync together. We also include, I think, if we have XML code. So for some of the data models, we have the XML code in there for the actual messages. So they have access to the actual messages that are being passed from some of the legacy systems. Excuse me. We did have to create some custom objects. So for SysML, one of the things we were trying to do is really cut down on the number of procedurals for the contractors. It's fixed price. They're trying to get something done in 2 years. So that's why we're trying to make as much use of the model data as possible, right? All those engineering procedurals come straight from the model. And then in some cases, some of these procedurals, like this one's a parts list. So it's really just physical equipment. It wants 10 data elements or so. That could be synced up to their wind chill. It could be dumped into a table. It's in the model. So we do have some custom profiles in there, but we have tried to keep them to a minimum. We have our GRA landing page. When you get to that one, this is where you access the videos for walkthroughs and to see the simulations. And then there are links that will take you into sort of navigation for where the architecture pieces is. We also have a change log in there. And then we have the problems bucket, which the contractors really liked. So that was basically all the information that we were in the middle of deciding. So those are all kind of the future decisions. So, are we going to use timing from an existing asset, or do we want them to provide timing? So it was all those sort of architectural decisions that were sort of being considered, our requirements trades. So they had insight into which ones we were thinking about and which changes might come up over the next couple of months, since it was kind of a short period from, the April to August timeframe. So every 2 weeks, they knew where we stood and what we were thinking about. And GRA contents, well, it's all CUI, so I can't show you what's in there. But it's basically all resource views plus security views to make up the GRA. We also have some higher level strategic views and operational views for the ConOps. So the ConOps, entirely generated out of the model, used a lot of relationships that James showed actually in the pre-lunch session. One of the entertaining comments from the ConOps output was, it would have been nice to see it more model-based. And we're like, it was 100% model-based. We didn't type anything in there. It was just all generated from the model elements. We tried not to overload people with views of UAF. I think that's one of the weaknesses. The presentation layer of SysML in general is pretty weak. But anyway, it's all generated from the model, SRDs from the model. Pretty much everything in there. We also have a lot of security views. So we have all the RMF traces in there, and the CCI traces are in there. So thousands of CCIs and RMF traces are all done. Those are all pre-linked to basically risks and mitigations that are in the model. All right, solution template. So they were all given a solution template. And in the solution template, it basically has a landing page to link to their model. And then we have predefined pages. So we had a page in there for the RFP response in there. We also have the dashboard review pages all pre-programmed in there. We have, I think, the style guide links in there, test model, integration model, and our set of review milestones, which is all that 15288 pieces. The other piece that was sort of another lesson learned from Epic One is the SME subject matter pages. So one of the issues, well, was that people couldn't find things in the contractor models, and they were sort of they were drilling into them, they got lost, and they got frustrated. So we tried to make things super easy for the proposal evaluation team. So for the proposal page, we had 16 elements that were that could be delivered as part of the model in response to the RFP. That cut down, that would not be counted as part of their page count, right? They could just put as much data in there as they wanted. We had 2 of the 16 were required to be in there. So, in the upper left, those 2 things were marked as required, and then the other ones are optional. But these were sort of the drop spaces for the contractors to put their information, and the people doing the evaluation only went to this page and they only clicked on these links. On the SME page, we had 14 different SMEs, and they all want to see different information. So for the requirements dashboard, we have the traceability from the CDD to the system requirements and the next level, all pre-programmed on that page. And then the contractors had to respond. And then data was extracted from their model. Sorry, I'm like choking on some I don't know, something weird. And anyway, the pages are all set up there, and it basically extracts from their templates and populates those tables for them. But they don't have to go anywhere else. They can just look at these tables. They can see the relationships that they wanted. They can see the test criteria they wanted. Everything's on that page. They don't have to go anywhere else. Cyber people, they can go there. They can see all the controls, what things satisfy those controls, where they're implemented, and the status of those controls. Test people, same thing. So this makes it nice and easy for people that really don't want to learn either UAF or SysML, but it's a page for them. They can access the documents. They can access the tables. Makes everything nice and easy. We also have the program review dashboard. So this status is basically for each program milestone. We have the 15288 criteria, and then there's a dashboard that basically where they can put in how they comply with it. It links to documents, links to images, links to data that basically satisfy those criteria. All right, UAF issues. So we were using 1.6 and we're using UAF 1.2, and there are no conjugated interface blocks in UAF 1.2. So you have to use interface blocks and conjugated ports. So slight difference between 1.6 and the UAF 1.2. Flow properties, you can use them, but you have to dig for them. It'd be nice if there was like a UAF version. The biggest issue I think that I've had with every single UAF model we've ever done is that no one likes the resource artifact stereotype. They don't know what it is. They just want it to say system. And it's something that almost nobody can get past with UAF. It's amazing. The other issue is sometimes with some of the predefined dropdowns, which are fantastic, it's nice to have, but if they don't map to a standard, and I think like resource roles doesn't, right? It's just sort of listed. It could be a platform, it could be whatever. If your breakdown is slightly different, then you have to extend the profile to use it. So it'd be nice for ones that aren't, let's say, conforming to a standard. If you just had other, and then you had a text field that said other, and you could just write what you want in there, that was in there, so that you don't have to extend the model. Because that's one of the things I like about UF is I'm trying not to extend it. You can really use those measurement types to add any missing data that you want, but someone wants a custom stereotype, that's tough. Use cases, I sort of feel like you're exiting UAF when you introduce those, but people want them. I don't know if use cases have shown up yet in 1.3 or no, they haven't shown up yet. In 2, they're going to show up. All right. I know, but it doesn't say operational use case or system use case or something like that people want. And then some of the measurement sets, right? Some of them are included, predefined in places where you want them, and other ones aren't, like the security ones. So when you're creating a model with 1,000 exchanges and you're adding, the security types to every single one of those 1,000 objects, that gets a little old. So having an easy way to add all these things would be nice. And testing is a little bit of an afterthought. It's still an afterthought in SysML. There's a presentation this morning about the test profile 2. Not a lot of information on that one, but I still find if we use that profile, I have to extend it because someone's going to want system test and someone's going to want an operational test. So then at that point, I might as well create my own profile, which I was trying to avoid in the first place. Yeah. All right. So I think in conclusion, for at least for us, we thought it was very successful. At least the program office did. We were able to get, pretty much everything we wanted out of UAF to support an acquisition. The industry folks really, took advantage of the opportunity to respond to the model. We got, like I said, up to CDR level quality in some cases, and that I think is going to be fantastic for helping them meet the timeline that they want. I think for some of the non-incumbents, having just an incredibly gory, detailed model for them to dig into was really valuable for them. It really sort of got them up to speed because, in the absence of that, I think the existing contractors just would have had an obscene advantage because they had 3 years of modeling detail that they could apply to the follow-on version. But this really put everybody on a more equal leveling playing field, and they got a lot more interest, I think, than they were expecting in this contract. I think on the evaluation side, it was great for the evaluation teams because we had this, predefined templates for them. We had the tables; they could side-by-side comparison. All that was good stuff. And anyway, so all that part was good. I got my 2-minute warning here. Next steps, we're going to try and basically push this forward. So at the enterprise level within our org, also with the SSIO, they seem to be super interested in the template. We do have to build out a little bit of the MOSA pieces. I think I showed a little bit about that with the standards. We'll see where that goes. Recommendations, presentation layer. That's a SysML, UML thing. Maybe UAF team will solve it too. But I think you're sitting in the room. There probably wasn't a single UAF diagram you could read today, except for maybe one. So, what happens when you see that is everyone just starts looking around the room, right? Because you can't read it. It's fuzzy. It doesn't really work. So we need a better presentation layer. And then resources. I don't know. Back to systems. I don't know. I think it's just too hard for people. So anyway, that's what I would do.
All right, thank you. We will take one question.
So there's several questions all dealing with access. Do people have access to any of these models? Are they all controlled? But before you get to that, because Laura asked this, I think the MBAC committee would like you to come present to them more of the details of what you're doing so they can incorporate that into the MB acquisition part. So back to the original question, what of these models are accessible for other people to use?
Yeah, so right now we are neutering it. So we're cleaning out all the MTC specific information. MITRE's helping with that. That'll get posted to space stations environment first. That'll probably go to the SSIO office and they'll make it, broader available. Okay. And then James said I should make it available to everybody at OMG, but.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.